So check down game. All right. We'll ask a question and we'll provide multiple potential answers. Then we'll select the answer we think best fits the question, just like a multiple choice test. All right. Ready, JT?
Let's go.
All right. More to blame, Kyle Shanahan or Purdy for the loss?
Shanahan, next.
I agree. Run the ball. Run the ball. Come on. Figure out the Kansas City defense. You're an offensive guy. Plus, always falls on the head coach. All right. Better all time, Patrick Mahomes or Peyton Manning?
Yo, it's crazy we're even having this conversation right now because at what point would we think we'd be comparing quarterbacks to Peyton Manning that haven't even played in the league a decade?
Yeah, he's not even 30 yet. He's not even 30.
I'm sorry, I hate this, but it's Mahomes, man.
Yeah.
Like, just look at what he's done. Like, Mahomes has gotten all the hard shit out of the way. He's already won more Super Bowls. He's got more playoff wins. 15 playoff wins to 14 playoff wins for Peyton. 6 seasons versus 17. That's insane. More passing TDs. I think he's like third all time in playoff passing TDs in 9 fewer games than Peyton. And Mahomes has, like I said, he has all the difficult stuff out of the way. So realistically, all Mahomes has to do is just pad stats now during the regular season, and he will lap Peyton Manning. I hate to say it, but him versus Peyton Manning is already over. But Mahomes just worked backwards.
No load management for Patrick Mahomes, you're saying, right?
For real.
He needs to pad the stat. Listen.
No. He's like, look, man, I'm doing everything hard up front.
Neither could beat Tom Brady, right? Especially in the big playoff games. So we'll start there, right? So neither one really has a leg up, in my opinion, there. Mahomes more Super Bowls, even though that doesn't always matter when it comes to football players because it is a team sport. But this is the difference, JT. We all know how good their arms were, how good of quarterbacks they were. Their football IQ through the roof. But Mahomes has that extra dimension of scrambling, improvising, running zone read. Like
he can do so much more out of structure than Peyton could ever do. Like
right.
Peyton's whole thing was like in the structure that I create. Mahomes is like, forget that. Like, we're just gonna run around and make it happen.
And to be honest, that's the difference. That Mahomes is just not only can improvise, but he just has that extra little bit of something that, like you said, when the play breaks down, Mahomes can make magic happen. Peyton, he was throwing the ball to the sideline, making sure he was out of the pocket and to the line of scrimmage, right? So I think that's the biggest difference.
I wonder, that Super Bowl where the Broncos got blown out by the 49ers and Legion of Boom, like, I wonder if Mahomes was in that Super Bowl.
The Seahawks, not the Niners. Yeah.
Yeah, Seahawks, yeah. I wonder if Mahomes was the quarterback instead of Peyton Manning. Like, that game probably would have been much different. And that's the difference to why he's better is you make Peyton Manning uncomfortable in his structure, and that's the ultimate, the worst case scenario was that Super Bowl. I think Mahomes gives them a dogfight, and they might win that game. So I agree.
They might still lose because I can't remember how good all of those Bronco weapons were, but
I mean they had
he keeps them in the game.
Eric Decker, Julius Thomas, 2 good running backs. Like they were pretty loaded.
Yeah. Yep.
No one scoring offense in the league that year. You remember? Didn't Peyton Manning throw like 7 touchdowns against your Steelers opening night that year?
Nah. All right, next one. Like more likely to be traded. On to the next question. Justin Fields or Russell Wilson?
Hey man, the more I read and the more I hear, I think the Bears are gonna stick with Justin Fields, man. I think it's Russell Wilson. They gotta move him. I don't see any way that they repair that relationship between him, Peyton, and the Broncos management. Like, Sean Payton threw him under the bus so many times last year. Not only threw him under the bus, but reversed full throttle and ran over him multiple times last season. Like, you can't come back from that. And I think Sean Payton's legacy got a little dinged up last year, and I can't see him wanting to stay attached to Russell his entire second stint as a coach. Because if he does, it might get him fired. So I think Russ has got to be gone.
I think it's Justin Fields. Listen, I think there's more of a want for him by teams. To make a trade, JT, it's got to be two partners. There's got to be 2 sides. I don't see where that's coming from for Russ. He's older, has that cap hit. He hasn't played at the level he once was at. I don't think he's ever going to get back to that level. And if you're going to make a move like that and give up capital, get the player with a higher ceiling. And it's clearly Justin Fields. If anything, like you said, Sean Payton may not want him there. I get that. But they may have to restructure and cut him to absorb a cap hit, because he may not be there, but I think it may be via being released and not by trade. So I'm still going to say Justin Fields is more likely to be traded, because the Bears are going to go Caleb Williams. They can't afford to pass him up, because if they do, and he turns out to be the next great thing, the next great whatever quarterback.
Just saying, if he turns out to be the next Patrick Mahomes, that's what everyone's hoping for.
Then they can never live that down. Everybody in that organization is gone. You don't want to be known to be the person that passes up a generational talent like that. So I think it's Justin Fields that is more likely to be traded. All right,
man,
bigger
issue.
How
I feel about Caleb. I don't think he's generational, but we'll talk about that at a later date.
Yeah, and I may be with you there. Bigger issue: Brandon Ayuk's post-game comments on social media, or Antonio Gates not being a first ballot Hall of Famer. Now, let me tell you what Brandon Ayuk posted. So JT he loves to get in these production meetings, gives out all these ideas, and then I got to do the hard work.
Oh, God forbid I come up with shit for us to talk about on this show.
And then I got to do the hard work.
Hold on. You do, for those of you that are watching, you understand, if he was in charge of making all the questions for this show, we'd only talk about two things: trivia and betting lines. That's it. That's all that would be on this show. Thank God I actually listen to things that people are arguing about in the real world, and I give us shit to talk about. You got to stop complaining.
But what I'm saying is, then you make me do all the hard work, and I got to find all these things, create the script. So listen, when asked if he hoped to stay with San Francisco, Brandon Ayuk's answer was, and I quote, "if that's the right move." Then he posted a cryptic message on Instagram, quote, in quotes here, "don't forget what got you here." So JT, bigger issue, those comments by Brandon Ayuk or Antonio Gates not being a first ballot Hall of Famer?
Man, this is the easiest question we've ever had. How the hell is Antonio Gates not a first ballot Hall of Famer?
I agree.
I'm literally scratching my head. Like, I want to see recorded evidence of when they're going through the process of who's in and who's out. I want to see the conversation these idiots had when it came time to break down Antonio Gates, whether he's in or out. Because this makes no sense. Just look at everything that's a qualifier for him, just from the tight end perspective. 4th all-time Pro Bowls, 3rd all-time in all-pro seasons. He's on the all-2000s Hall of Fame team. Look at the stats. 1st in touchdowns, 3rd in yards. What's he? 3rd in receptions all time, and 4th in most games played. Like, this is probably one of the few lock first ballot Hall of Fame resumes I have ever seen. Like, how is he not in? Like, I really want to know. He's taking it much gracefully than I would be handling this situation. But this is a crime. This is a fucking felony. Excuse my language.
Whoa!
Like,
watch
unreal
the language.
that this happened.
Watch the
unreal.
Watch the language. No, the bigger issue is him not getting in. Especially, you look at the ballot. No disrespect to some of these guys, but
major disrespect.
You're telling me Antonio Gates can't get on this list? And listen, we agree here, so I kind of stopped listening to you. So maybe you said this already. 116 touchdowns, 7th
yes, I
all
said
time.
All the stats.
7th all time.
Stats.
Number
First
1 for tight
ends. I said all this shit. You know I said it. Back to what you said about no disrespect to those other guys. I disagree. Major disrespect. If I was one of those guys that got in over Antonio Gates, what's the big guy's name that comes and knocks on your door? He's huge guy. What's that guy's name?
David Baker. I think
David Baker knocked on my door, and I would ask him, like, who are the other guys that got in? And Antonio Gates ain't one of them. I'm like, I gotta sit this one out.
You're not giving it back. I gotta
sit this one out, big fella. I gotta sit this one out.
So let me ask you this: you're a Miami Hurricane guy. We both.
I love Devin Hester.
Okay, are you taking Devin Hester on to put Antonio?
I feel like Devin Hester shouldn't have to give up his spot. For one, it's not his first time on the ballot, and
all
two,
right, what about Andre Johnson? Should Andre Johnson recuse himself off the list?
The receiver?
Yeah,
of course. Of course.
Wow.
Andre Johnson, I love him. He was great in NFL, but he ain't the first ballot Hall of Fame type to me.
I
Like,
can respect.
Are we forgetting that Antonio Gates basically was like the Patrick Mahomes of tight ends? Like, he changed the way people started drafting tight ends. Like, we went and looked at basketball players that never played tight end before. We wanted athletic guys.
He changed the way fantasy football looked at tight ends.
Exactly. Cheat code, man. Like, this is how. I just want to know how. Hey, what's his name? Chris Baker, the big guy. Look, man, you should have looked at that list and been like, all right, I ain't knocking on this guy's door. I'm going to just go to Antonio. I'm going to make an executive decision.
Wow. Let's go back real quick. Oldsma Bros, thanks for listening all show here. Manning went to 4 Super Bowls with 4 different head coaches. That's respect. But Mahomes has gone to 4.
He didn't. He was the head coach on all of those teams.
Mahomes has gone to 4 Super Bowls already before the age of 30. And then Manning 3 for 2 against Brady in AFC championship games. Okay, I'll give you that. But I would say in their prime, I think he was 1 and 2. So, and that was
a big part of his legacy was he couldn't get over the hump of beating the Patriots. And some of them teams, they had home field advantage.
And I would say eventually Mahomes would have if he faced Brady 5 times, he's going to win at least 1 or 2 of those himself. But valid points, good facts there. That is true. I still think if I'm building a team from scratch and I'm choosing between those 2, you can't go wrong. You can't go wrong, but I'm going Mahomes.
Yes, you can because
I'm going Mahomes.
I disagree when you put it that way because this is that
the
classic
O-line?
question
the
of
O-line?
No, it's that classic question of what's the ceiling and does he get there? Because we also have never seen him not play for Andy Reid. Like, this is a top 5 coach, offensive mind. Like, he's playing for
But we just said, JT, if Mahomes was at San Francisco in this game, it's a blowout.
Yeah, but Shanahan's a top offensive mind too, and they got hella weapons.
Well,
I'm just like,
I'm going to hire a really good offensive coordinator.
If Patrick Mahomes went to Chicago instead of Mitch Trubisky, is he a top 5 quarterback all time by now?
I mean, we'll never know though.
Patrick Mahomes with Matt Nagy as a head coach is not going to be a top 5 quarterback. But I will say this. Peyton Manning went to a shitty franchise and turned them into one of the best franchises in the league. Like, he was the person that turned that franchise around. Like, I don't know if Patrick Mahomes is that.
But see, this is what I love.
And we'll never know. You will never know.
This is what I love. We act like Andy Reid had all these titles and had the greatest show on turf before Mahomes. I'm sorry. Come playoff time, his offense is sputtered because defenses tighten up in the playoffs. Mahomes took it to another level.
Now we disrespecting Andy Reid
to make
Mahomes shine in a theoretical situation.
I guarantee you one thing.